Like you all are doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a move. That's a 3 move.
Yeah.
By the way.
Oh, hell yeah. That's a 3 move. We make a 3 moves.
Exactly, making 3
I was
moves.
going to say that. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
pinpointed that. This is a big
Yes.
move for us.
Yeah.
This is us putting
Yes.
ourselves out there.
It's
And we are
huge.
proud of ourselves
Yep,
for making our
yep,
3
yep, yep.
moves.
Yes, I am proud of you because
Aw,
when you
thank
both
you.
told me you were 9s, and I'm like,
you.
look at them.
Thank you.
Every time I see
Aw.
9s making those type of, I'm like, okay, they are.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Soul Sisters Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex,
And I'm Daniella.
and we are super excited to have you guys back with us this week. We have an amazing guest lined up for you today. She has a lot of cool information to offer us.
I'm so excited to talk about this. Me and my sister love talking about Enneagram. So, skipping ahead, we have an amazing guest today, Natali Schulterbrandt. She is an Enneagram coach. She's going to talk to us about all the amazing powers of Enneagram and how we can use it to benefit our relationships and even our work environment. So, thank you, Natali. Thank you for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me this
Of course.
opportunity and platform. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your background. Where I know you
Sure.
said you work in higher education. So, what do you
Yeah.
do?
So my background is mainly in education. I'm an educator by passion and trade. And also with a background in psychology and counseling. So that is kind of like the background where I come from. And then the past 5 to 6 years, I've been studying the Enneagram and kind of diving into it and what it means and how it applies into my life. So that's how I kind of, somebody sent it to me and I was like, what the heck is this? And then I went down that rabbit hole.
And it rocked your world.
And it did. It rocked my world, yes.
I did a little intro kind of research myself, and I was like, "Wow, this is
Yeah.
a
It's
world.
crazy.
It is a world." And
Yes.
I mean, it helps that you already have the psychology degree because when I started reading it, I was like, "Wow, a person can invest 5 to 6 years
Yes.
in this." So it's really amazing how what is the word?
It like
Specific. How
Yes, it
specific
specifically
it is.
pinpoints you.
Yes.
There were some things I was reading. I'm like, oh my gosh, other people do this, and I
Yeah.
was like, this is so me. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's specific and detailed, and I would say like gut wrenching once you start reading into it. So the cool thing about the Enneagram, because I've taught and I've taken like my own personality assessments. I don't know if any of you have done any others. For example, like Myers-Briggs,
I
you know, where you have the MBTI results with the 4 letters. Like I'm an INFP or an INFJ. So in similar fashion, like the Enneagram is kind of similar. It's another tool, you know, to help us kind of understand each other. And also the benefit is to understand ourselves. The part where the Enneagram kind of becomes different from the other systems is that instead of kind of putting you in a box, the Enneagram is telling you this is your personality based on the things that you have experienced. So we got to talk about a little bit about the background, like of where it came from or how it evolved to also understand like where the Enneagram comes from. So when I started going into it, you know, we started talking about types and we're like, okay, but what does that mean? So the system is a system. You have to learn it in its entirety because it is very dynamic and it is very intense and detailed. So when we take a test, we only get like a result, and then we're like, what the heck does that mean? You know? So the whole idea is to understand it all. So you need, sometimes it's good to have somebody to kind of guide you through it. And that's the part that I was kind of missing as I was learning about it. So that's why it takes so long to kind of dive in and really learn it. But what I learned about it is that it's been around for over 4,000 years.
Whoa.
Oh wow.
And it is a system that was not created, so it was discovered. And what we mean by discovered is that it's something that's already within humanity. So if you ever read about Carl Jung, like in high school or in college, you know that he was a psychologist, and he talks about not a stereotype, so he talks about archetypes, right? So when we're talking about the 9 main types, what we're really seeing are 9 archetypes of humanity. That's what we're seeing, of being a human being. So when we look at the Enneagram, which is a circle with the 9 main types, the 9 main types show the 9 main ways in which we see the world, or we could see the world as humans, okay?
Interesting.
So those main types, I said when I started learning 9, like that's 9?
Yeah,
There's
just
like
that's
9
a
billion
strange-
people in
yeah,
the
that's
world.
a strange number for so
And
many
a small
people.
number,
Yeah.
right?
Such a small number. Yeah. How do you compartmentalize all the world into 9
Right,
types? Yeah.
right. And when you start diving in, you start to notice that it's not. Because when you look at the Enneagram, even the Enneagram itself, like the graph itself, is just a representation, a symbol of really what the thing is. And really it shows us a Enneagram, which is a Greek word, Ennea meaning 9, and gram meaning drawing. So it's a drawing of 9. But really when you start looking at the drawing of 9, the 9 numbers are around the circle and then they connect to each other. So that shows the dynamism or the dynamics that are happening within the system.
Gotcha.
Because we're complex.
Right.
Not every type is the same, because we're going to learn how they kind of interact and play off of each other. And also this whole idea of that has to be introduced early to understand it is the levels of health.
That's a really good point.
Yes, because a 2 or any type will manifest differently, because once again, we're talking about the behavior, the reason under the behavior, and not the behavior itself, which is another part that is different within the system. Other system will tell you, oh, this is how I am. Based on this, I am X, Y, and Z, and that's it. The Enneagram doesn't let you get away from with that. The Enneagram says, yes, you see the world this way because developmentally there were things that happened that you learned along the way. However, these are ways that you can get out of those patterns or those beliefs by looking then at your other connections within the Enneagram. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's like a little bit of introduction. But then, as I learned more, then I was like, okay, so 4,000 years ago, it was told, from person to person, kind of like word of mouth. And then I found out that it was kind of brought to mainstream, like in the 60s. So there was this gentleman called Oscar Ichazo, who started a consciousness school in California. He has now passed away. And then that work kind of was developed from some of his students, one of which is Claudio Naranjo, who is a psychiatrist. He's a Chilean psychiatrist, or was, because he passed away a couple of years ago. And he actually used that information of the Enneagram and the 9 Enneatypes to really dive deep into the work of the psychology behind it, and especially developmental psychology and the ways that we grow up and how it impacts personality formation.
That's so interesting. And why do you think it's had such a resurgence in the last 10, 15 years? Because I just heard about it maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think now people might be wanting to know more, right?
Yeah.
I think we might be more spiritually attuned.
Maybe, yeah.
I think maybe, 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if we talked about this, we were like, ugh. Okay, so what are you talking about? Another thing. But I think now we are more open to kind of hearing about it, learning about it, kind of applying it. So I think we might be ready to listen to it now. I think it's falling in and it's settling in a lot better.
I think we're
for
trying
us.
to learn more about ourselves.
Yes.
In order to, because I know for me, it's been trying to heal a lot of trauma from growing up. So the more I learn about myself, and the Enneagram test was
Spot on.
And I was like, oh, okay, I see. So I need to kind of work on. I'm not quite the best person I thought I was. But I think especially with maybe millennials, Gen Z, they're trying to figure out more about themselves. So we can change those patterns.
And that's the other beauty and part of the Enneagram, that it's not going to tell you all the pretty things, unicorns and rainbows about how you are great. Like you said, it's going to show you also the dark side of your personality, the things that we don't want to look at, because many times those things are in the unconscious, in our habits, happening underneath.
Yeah.
So those things we don't want to see. So when I go and I talk about it, like in trainings and groups of people, I say, you're gonna get dragged today.
That's so funny. You're gonna
You're
get
gonna get dragged
dragged.
a little bit today, and that is okay. That is how we learn, how we grow.
Yes.
Because really, it really does. When you start diving deep and you either take an assessment or you sit down with somebody that can explain the system to you, you really start to really notice the two sides.
Right. So let's go over kind of like the 9 types and a little bit about them, so that way, we're not, our listeners, viewers aren't like, what is that types? What are they? So
Right.
let's go over, kind of give them a little rundown and see what
Sure.
they're about.
Absolutely. So we can start with type 1 in the Enneagram. So before I start, I just want to say that within the Enneagram itself, you're going to find the 9 types. And then the 9 types are divided into 3 groups, right? Into what they call in classic Enneagram triads. So we have the 3 triads. The first triad, which has types 8, 9, and 1, is our anger triad. Okay, so we're talking about how the person, the individual, sees the world or meets reality, okay, through those instincts, through that feeling, like that is the main feeling underneath it. So the next triad that we see is made up by type 2, 3s, and 4s, and that is our heart or shame triad. And I know that we talked about the pretty side and the dark side. So when we're talking about those feelings, many times we're going to notice that many of them are going to bring up things, for us. And then lastly, in the next triad, which is our head triad or fear triad, that's going to be types 6, 7, 5, 6, and 7 are going to be on the triad. So to have that kind of like in mind when we're looking that they are divided into those 3 main types. So when we let's start with type 1. Type 1 is an anger type. Is within the anger triad. What type 1 is trying to do when we start looking into the personality type, and like I mentioned earlier in regards to the work that Claudio Naranjo has done. So the developmental work here in the psychological piece to understand it is that when we were little, between the ages of 5 or 7, is when psychologists say that we start to develop our personalities. And then we are sponges, right? We're learning all kinds of things. So all kinds of messages that we're hearing around us, either that are directly, targeted for us or not. However we perceive that or those messages, we are then kind of internalizing them. And that kind of helps create the personality then that will develop. So you can hear, certain messages, and depending on the messages that they hear, then they create a personality. So for example, for type 1, the messages were, it's not okay to make mistakes. So however that was said, however that came across to the child started to believe and internalize that it's not okay for me to make mistakes. And because of that, then as an adult, we have an adult that is very, strict, very moral, very sometimes kind of high-strung about things, very perfectionistic, and then they take those things not only for themselves but also for the people around them, right?
Yep. I say like this because my husband is a 1, and I found out that that's one of the more
difficult.
difficult personalities.
Yes.
So, but yes, exactly. He holds everyone to the highest standard, expects
Yes.
everyone to perform the way he does.
Yes.
And when they fall short, he gets very upset.
Yes, because ones will hold themselves to that standard as well. So that is the part there, right? The work to do is to create that awareness of like, where do we go? So another piece to keep in mind when we're looking at Enneagrams is also, I mentioned earlier briefly, the levels of health, right? So usually when we take assessments in the Enneagrams, what is testing out, and usually will give you a good typing when you are at mid-range or low range of health. Because really the Enneagram is measuring for when you are highly stressed. What comes out?
Yes.
Okay, when we're highly stressed. Because when we're highly stressed, that's when those automatic behaviors that we go to, our go-tos,
Yep.
to keep us safe, will come forward to say, I have to manage the situation now, right? So that's where we see those types of behaviors based on the ways that they're triggered. That makes sense?
Yep.
So think about like a ladder, at the top you have your top health, okay, top level of health, and you have at the middle steps, mid-level, and then down lower levels, and they have different manifestations for them.
That's so crazy. That's so intricate.
Right. It is very
Wow.
intricate. So that's where it gets, a little bit different because and you could probably say, depending also on how stressed your husband is. And when we talk about levels of health, what we're talking is, I see it from a holistic perspective when we're looking at levels of health. I'm talking about emotional health, physical health, psychological health, all of it. How are we, and it starts with the body. This is something that I tell people, starts with the body. How are you taking care of yourself? If you're hungry and cold, you're not going to have the same capacity to deal with stress as when all those needs are being taken care of, right?
Yes.
So that's when, at that moment, when we are at those low levels because we're not taking care of ourselves holistically, then we are more up to acting in an automatic ways according to our personalities. Remember, it's those glasses that we wear, and those glasses are in. So as a type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those glasses are the ones that we wear. They're in. They're
it.
shut. That's it. For life. For life.
Yep.
That's it.
That's your prescription.
And that's exactly that's your prescription.
That's your
There's nothing
lifetime.
bad about it. There's not one that is wrong or better than another one. It's just it is what it is, and we have to kind of learn to accept it and find ways to work with it. So for the one is that aspect, right? That aspect of they have a strong inner critic. We all might have an inner critic, but ones have a strong inner critic. That's what really defines or differentiates the ones from all the other types, is that strong inner critic. So I heard once that somebody that was talking about the Enneagrams, and they said, woof, I would not want to be a type 1. Like that is the only type I would not want to be because of how much intense it can be and how much pressure it can be. However, if she needed somebody to pilot a plane or to be a surgeon,
Yep.
I think this was Susan Biles in one of the podcasts that I heard her, and she has a book also. She said that the type 1s will be the ones to look at.
Because they'll get it done.
Because they will get it done, and they will get it done right. So we need ones because ones keep us doing the right thing. Okay, it's when it's when it goes to the stream of it that it becomes a little problematic for the person themselves and for the relationships that they have. Okay.
Yeah. No, I see that because he's also been the one that has changed me as a person. He has made me a better person.
Yeah.
Maybe he was the structure you needed.
There you go. Very structured.
Absolutely. I don't
As
doubt
nines,
that.
we're like, woo!
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. But yes, no, I definitely see that as well. There are redeeming and good qualities to ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're both nines. What is the 9 about?
Do we want to go in order, or do we
Sure.
want
No,
to
no, keep
go?
going in order.
Because I could go in and out.
Whatever you think. No, we can go in order. So
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, sure. So then we have twos, and twos they fall into the heart triad.
Okay.
So twos are what they're concerned with is to be selfless, not selfish. So twos are
Oh, we love a 2.
yes. I am
Our
a
nurses
two.
and teachers. Yes, I can feel that positive, loving spirit.
Yes, twos are great. Not only because I'm a 2. I'm gonna get to the dark side in a moment.
Uh-oh.
Okay. But yeah, twos. The message that we heard was, it's not okay for you to have your own needs. Okay, so because it's not okay to have your own needs, and that was a difficult one for me to hear. I remember when I had the book, and 5 years ago I got the book, and I was so excited, and I started reading, and I was in my office, and I read, twos. They heard that they couldn't have needs, and that they want to feel loved and wanted, and I just cried because it just hit me. Like at that
Yeah.
moment, it was just like a punch to the gut. And I was like, oh, that's how you know, by the way, when you start finding your type, when it hits you.
Feel it.
Yeah, you feel it in your core. So that's when I knew. I was like, yep, I'm a 2. The thing with twos is that we are so concerned with others. at the lower levels, we're so concerned with others and making others' lives good and providing that value, that goodness of being the special person for other people, that we forget about ourselves in the process. And a key thing that happens at that point is resentment with twos. So it's about then making sure, the development comes in understanding that I can meet my needs and I can ask for what I need. So that's where the health and the healing comes in for twos. And when also they start to worry less about others, in the sense that if others need my help, they will ask me for it. I don't have to do it all the time, for people. But if they need my help, they will ask for it, and then kind of think that through. Not just do, feel, because that's what's happening with twos, is that they're feeling, because they're a feeling type, and then they're doing. And because of that, sometimes they lose perspective.
My sister's a 2, and she's a nurse. She's an amazing caregiver to everybody. She's always been like that. But she always makes sure that people know she can be a good 2, because she has an amazing husband who takes care of her when she gets home. You know what I mean? So I'm like, that's such a great way to put it.
Yes.
The 2s need to be taken care of as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is a healthy level.
Yep.
Right, a healthy level
Yeah.
that has understood that I need somebody. I need some people to lean on.
Yeah.
Twos, when they're not very healthy, they don't think they need anybody. They got it. That's why I got you, because I don't need anybody. So there's a lot of emotional honesty that is lacking. Like, how are you doing? Everything is fine. Everything is always fine. I got it. But always that thing of, I show up for others, why aren't others showing up for me, right? Kind of thing. So that's the 2 in a nutshell. 3s, again, are on the heart spectrum. So for them, what is happening is that they want to win. They don't want to lose. So everything is about the performance. So the message that the child heard is that I need to perform. In order for me to be loved and valued and cared for, I need to perform whatever it is that was demanded or wanted or of me. So then this child becomes an adult that is very efficient, very hardworking, very driven, very goal-oriented. Can you think of any type of person in our society that is like that?
I wasn't ready for a quiz.
I wasn't ready.
Politician? I don't know. Who are you thinking?
Politicians, and what else?
Oh, okay. We're talking
Very
generalities.
driven. They like to.
Businessmen.
Right. Yes, CEOs. Absolutely.
Sports, anyone in sports.
Yes. We need people like that, and especially in our society, that is rewarded. That performance, that it is rewarded. However, the issue here is that they don't have their own identity. Like, what identity are they creating, or what persona? Is it based on what they want, on their wishes, or on their wants, or is it based on something that somebody else said that they needed to do or be? Right?
So interesting.
Yeah. So they could go years. You could find it in the lower levels. That con man that wants to be successful and show and portray that they're being successful, but the reality to that doesn't match, right? Or you could have the person that is really successful but still feels empty, right? They have everything. They have the business, they have the house, they have everything, the career, but they are not, fulfilled, right? Because they don't find them. They don't know who they are. Okay.
Wow.
So 4, still in the heart area here too. 4s want to be special. They don't want to be ordinary. Yes, they don't want to be ordinary. 4s can be very misinterpreted. Sometimes we think, oh, 4s, qué drama queens. But it's because 4s have a very interesting way in which, again, they grew up with the sense or the message that they couldn't be themselves, or they couldn't be too much. So many times they felt like they didn't fit in. So there is this envy, we could say, that there's this word that is used within the Enneagram. There's this envy about the 4s. Not envy because they want the things that you have, but the envy because how do people go around in the world and they just belong? How do people go around in the world and they just fit in? So they have that envy, like, why? How does that work? And why can I fit in? Why can I like they feel like an alien, like walking around,
right.
and sometimes they can be, they can seem very eccentric. They can do things that are very strange, right, to us, but it's just the way that they are, right? So understanding that there is value in their uniqueness is an amazing point for them to heal. Fours are amazing in that they are creative. They are really in touch with their sense of emotions, with their emotions. Of all the heart types, fours are the most in touch with their emotions. Fours can be the friend that when you're going down through a difficult situation, they're the one that you can call. They can sit with you and cry with you because they're not afraid. They're not the one to be telling you, oh, but look at the bright side. Four are not looking at the bright side. Four are going to go down there with you.
Wow.
And they're going to cry and they're going to hold you.
Wow.
Yes. When they are in a healthy space. Now, again, we're looking at different levels of space. So you can see how that can turn dark really fast, at the lower levels then, if the person is not taking care of themselves in a holistic way, right? Any questions?
I don't think my husband's a 4. Now that you just said that, he's definitely not a 4.
Yeah, no.
You're like, that's not,
No, he's not in tune with his
So
emotional
when we
being.
get to 6, we'll look at
I'm
it
pretty
again.
sure he's a 6 because he's very, I think he's very much a 6. But
yeah, because in the lower levels, 4 then becomes too connected to their experience in regards to the outsider experience, the victim experience. They become too connected to that when they're at the lower levels.
Wow, okay.
So it's like, oh, I am the
Self-pity.
victim. Yes, because they're so in tune with that, those feelings get amplified at
Gotcha.
lower levels.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that's something for force to watch out. Like any of us,
Right.
when we start going into that. So that's why it's so important. You see that movement because we can catch ourselves in that movement because those movements could happen in a day. Right? In a week, in a month, in years, to see like in what era we are also. And things that happen that are out of our control also affect those levels of development.
Yeah.
Like when I had my child and I took her home, those first 2 weeks, I was out of gas,
Oh, yeah.
So I was at low,
Yeah,
low,
low too.
to be able to cope with things. So my automatic reactions will come forward. So those are the kinds of things that we encourage people then to look into when they start figuring out their number. Then we move on to the second triad, okay, which is the head fear triad. So those are 5, 6, and 7. So 5 is concerned with being competent. They want to be competent. They don't want to be incompetent. So at the core, they are afraid of the world. Something happened in early experience that's triggered to them, oof, this world is not safe. And because the world is not safe, I have to know everything I have to know about the world or about any specific thing, whatever interest that is, for me to know how to react, what to do, where to put it, how to organize it, how to arrange it. This is very a thing for them.
Wow.
What I learned about 5s is that 5s have a very low battery throughout the day. So we might see 5s very aloof and disconnected because of that. They have a battery like that they go throughout the day, and when they use that up,
That's it.
done. It's done. It's time to
Is it because
Pack
they're
it
so
up.
on high alert that they're almost like blasting through that battery life, or not necessarily?
And not necessarily that it will depend again on each, personality, but it's not necessarily that they're going like blasting through it, but every interaction that they have, they're using that
So
battery.
draining.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So draining. So you might see people like that, like, I can't people today.
Yeah.
So most likely maybe there are 5s, right? Then we move on to the 6. 6s want to be supported, not unsupported. So for them, it is really important. 6 are the highest percentage of people are actually 6s.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, that's what I
Oh,
found out.
wow.
So 6s are the people that want to know what's going to happen, how is it going to happen, because they want to be prepared. Again, they're ahead within the head triad and fear. So for them, they're always thinking about the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario that could happen? And how can we have a plan B to be ready for worst case scenario? Okay. The interesting thing with 6s is that 6 splits in 2. So there is a theory of it where the six splits into the counterphobic six, and a counterphobic six acts similar to an eight, which we're going to touch on in a few. So what happens is with your we're going to say in this language, for your regular six, the regular six wants to know so that they can operate in a system. They want to know the ins and outs so they can operate within the system and not do the wrong thing or fit in well, or have the support that they need within that system. Eights, on the other hand, so sixes follow authority very well. They need authority. They need something to tell them what needs to be done. For counterphobic six, they learn that authority is not very trustworthy. Authority can do the wrong thing, and they can take advantage of their power. So what we find with counterphobic sixes is that they fight. They're more challenging, more questioning. It's not just like, why, because you say so, but who are you? Kind of thing. So we might find more like of the activist, maybe.
A little more rebellion.
Yeah, a little more rebellion. And again, that could be this within the same person. We could have this back and forth with sixes, but sixes are very loyal. They got your back. They're amazing. Once you have a six in your life, they are ride or die.
He's my ride or die.
Six are ride or die.
He's my ride or die. Yeah.
Then next we have sevens, and sevens are to be free, not to be caged. So for sevens, what they learn is that they couldn't count with others. So
Like rely on
they couldn't
other-
rely.
Gotcha.
Exactly. They couldn't rely with other people. Whatever happened in their childhood, that's what they learned. That's the message they came out with. So because of that, they are very enthusiastic. They have a lot of energy. They have a lot of projects. They get excited about life. They want to eat life, you
Yes.
know, with everything that life has to offer. The thing is that at the core is that they're eating life and doing all these things because they don't want to look at the pain. They don't want to look at the stress. They don't want to have painful situations. They want to avoid the pain. So they keep on this constant go, 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 move, next kind of thing. So that's what's happening with 7. 8 wants to be strong, not weak. So 8 learned early on that they had to protect themselves. There was some type of trauma where they felt vulnerable, either being in a physical sense, emotional sense, whatever it was. And for them, they feel that they have to protect themselves physically. So they're very aware. When 8s get into spaces, they're very aware of themselves, how they make impact, how they're being impacted. So they can come across very intense. People that feel like intimacy with conflict. So they like to push to just see like people's reactions, okay, with 8. So they can come across very intense. And then, lastly, 9s.
Our favorite.
The best for last. 9s want to be peaceful, not disruptive. So that's what's going on with 9s. 9s, when we're talking about peaceful, not disruptive, and you can correct me here and talk about your own experiences, but the feeling of not disruptive inside, like the inner peace, as well as the environment piece. So what happens with 9s is that they can get so go with the flow with things, and they're fine with letting others take on the charge, okay, which is fine. But it becomes very difficult for them to assert themselves at mid or low levels, because the message here was, it's not okay for me to assert myself.
Right.
So that's what was learned. And if it's not okay for me to assert myself, I'm going to have to find a way for me to do that.
Yeah.
Without
Without
doing
actually
it.
asserting myself. Without actually
Passive
standing up for myself.
aggression.
Oh no.
Yes.
You're speaking our language.
Yo, girl. So that's what happened with 9s. And because of that piece, sometimes what I learned, they can go through like life as a zombie, because they're so easy to kind of mesh with other people because they want to go along. They can go through life until they wake up. So we can talk about then that movement and how that happens for 9s. So when we look at 9 in the Enneagram, 9 sits, and this is really cool that both of you are, because 9 sits at the very top of the Enneagram.
Nice.
And it connects. I know, right? So you have a view to all the types, by the way.
Wow.
So what that means is as a 9, you have the ability to see all sides,
That's so cool.
which is what sometimes leaves you like
Who am
stuck. See?
Yeah.
Or stuck like, but you are the one that someone could come to you and you could see all the sides to that issue and how that could be resolved in so many other ways, right?
Yeah.
Or the reason, the reasoning why. So that's amazing. So they're good mediators. 9s can be amazing mediators because of that. And then when we look at the 9 is also repressing anger because it's in the middle. So sometimes when we talk to 9s are like, oh, I don't relate to anger. I've never feel anger. Like, I don't feel angry. Like, what are you talking about? I'm an anger type.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read that about 9s, I was like,
Me
oh,
too.
really? Like, I don't
I was like,
think
I
I'm
have anger?
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I think I do.
Yeah.
yeah. Because they're like, "Kid?"
It's so well hidden.
See, exactly. But it's there.
It's there, but it's
It
super
is.
hidden.
Ooh, and there's so much.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's in every
Yeah.
corner.
Oh, I know some 9s. There's so much.
It's a lot.
I'm just like,
therapy.
we all do. But yeah, for 9s, it is there. And when they do decide to use that, it can come across very,
It's
explosive.
Yep.
So when it does, like for the people that know the 9s, they're like,
What's that?
say, like, what happened? Like, who are you? Because that's not something that 9s feel comfortable with in the expression of that anger. So when we keep looking at at the 9, right? 9 connects then to 6 in the Enneagram. So those lines connect with 6, and it also connects with 3, and then it makes a triangle. So what this is showing is a dynamic of stress and the dynamic of health, just like any other type. So when 9s are in stress or in health, they make that type of movement. And when we mean movement, it's really that we are connected, especially to those as a 9, for example, you're connected to 6 and you're connected to the energy of 3. And when you are stressed out, then you can intentionally make the movement to health. Okay? So the movement to health, or let's talk about the automatic movement for 3, is the automatic movement in very stress is the lower levels of 6.
Right. The anxiety.
The anxiety, the worry, the paranoia, all of that, depending on like the context, but lower levels of 6 in that case. So think about your own experiences, like when you were the most stressed out. Because that's what will tell you if you are in the right type. When you're the most stressed out, where do you go? What are the things that you do? What do you say to yourself?
Yeah,
You know?
self-deprecating, depressed, all of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you start, taking a look at that and then you see that movement, those are flags. For me, when I started learning, I was like, oh, so those are flags. When you become aware, like, ooh, when I'm stressed, like I act this way. And then these are flags that you are moving automatically. And the movement happens automatically. You're moving to that lower levels of 6. So then the work isn't moving you out, moving you up and out of that, more into the high levels of 3 in your case. So when we look at the high levels of 3, it's taking movement, acting, like you all doing this thing. That's a move. That's a 3 move.
Yeah.
By the way,
Oh, hell yeah. That's a 3 move. We make a 3 move.
exactly making 3
I was
moves.
going to say that. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you pinpointed that. This is a
Yes.
big move for us.
Yeah.
This is us putting
Yes.
ourselves out there.
It's huge.
And we are proud of ourselves
Yep,
for making our
yep,
3
yep, yep.
moves.
Yes, I am proud of you because
Aw,
when you
thank
both
you.
told me you were 9s, and I'm like,
you.
look at them.
Thank you.
Every time I see 9s making those type of, I'm like, okay, they are moving themselves out of that, just kind of going along and actually embracing the discomfort of what it
Yes.
means to be disruptive, right? Because I'm sure this is very triggering when you have to, put everything together, contact people, and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So that's what then that looks like, and you can think of the applications then, that it can have. have for somebody to know that information.
That is so interesting. I know. I was like, how are we doing this as like
yeah.
nines? We're just like, well, we said this is our year that we are going to move from the defense to the offense. Like we are ready to be in our healthy three life.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
we both feel like that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
this is a good outlet to do it. I mean, because we're still not, you still don't see visibly the people.
Right?
I love you all, but you scare
Oh,
me.
I love that.
But yeah, no, but it allows us to kind of get our point across without,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just immediately jumping into some territory
Yeah.
that we're not comfortable with.
Yeah. The extra
So,
stress
yeah.
of, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely a big move though. And I'm super socially anxious. So it was huge for me when he was like, we're doing it. I'm like, okay.
I know, poor Alex. I'm like, come on, let's do this. She's like, oh my God.
I love that.
Me being the 9. Let's go.
So how
Let's
can
do
we as
it.
friends encourage or support our other friends based on their numbers? I know it's so different because there's so many,
Yeah.
but
So once we have this knowledge, right, this information, then we can use it to help us identify. So when I learned about this, I had everybody in my life take take
Yeah.
it. I was like, I need to know your type. And they were looking at me, but I'm like this, so they already know. So they were like, okay, pass me the thing. So they took it, and then I got an idea, and I'm like, oh, so you're this. And I started like talking to them about it. So knowing yourself, for knowing yourself, obviously, you're going to use this for growth and development, right? That's one of the things that I use. Many therapists actually know of the Enneagram. So when I myself go to therapy, I talked about the Enneagram when I'm talking about like my own self-growth and like realizations that I've been having, which I had a lot in 2022.
nice.
That helped me. And a lot of it was work that I had done within the Enneagram, and knowing that really helped me to get out of a lot of things, places that I was stuck. But when it comes with friends, knowing that really gives you compassion and understanding also. So for example, I have a lot of type 7 friends, which go really well with 2s because 7s are fun,
The life
I
of the
love them.
party. Yeah.
Life of the party, love 7s. However, when 7s are in stress, they go to 1. Okay, they go to 1 energy. So you can imagine, I had my 7 friend who is super nice, outgoing, likes to have fun. And then she came to my house, she came in, and I see that she's, a little bit antsy. So I'm looking at her, we're talking, and then she grabs a cup. She grabs it and she starts cleaning a cup that's already clean. She grabs it and starts cleaning it. So to me, my first reaction was like, my house is clean. That's a 2. Like, what? Like, I want you to be comfortable in my space. My house is clean. But then it was that awareness again of like, oh, shoot. Like, yeah, she's a 7 and she's very stressed. So let me start with this conversation. So I did ask. I said, what's going on? Like, what's going on with life? What's happening? Are you okay? Then she like, this is what's going on. Like, all these things are happening. I'm like, okay, that's it. That's it. Because she's usually not that way. So it was like an interruption of that thought, of that story that I was going to tell myself based on my automatic, right, where I was going to go. Interrupted it right away. Like, ooh, I wonder. I'm curious. I wonder now what's going on, and let me have a conversation about it. So I think that's the gift here, is to really give us a time to pause. Now, that's not going to happen automatically just by knowing and having the information, having the knowledge. This takes practice as well.
Right.
So there are like practices that, I'm learning, and I'm also telling people like you have to create some type of practice where you come down into your body. That's going to be very important, because then you're not going to catch yourself in moments of stress. Then you're not going to be able to catch yourself if you don't have some type of practice, like mindfulness practice or something that is going to help you stay in the present, in the now, and catch those red flags.
And yeah, and it takes you, like how you mentioned, you need to know so much that you were able to notice, like, that's not her, or that's not her, and you were able to catch it before, she let herself go into her full OCD or whatever that is.
Right, exactly,
So it's
exactly.
being aware as well of that. And you also mentioned that at work that you notice that based on your team, you're able to make better
Yes, and
choices.
yeah,
for
and
the
at work,
team.
I had them all take it too. I did, and yeah, so I noticed, certain patterns. So in times of anxiety and change, obviously we know that change is going to create anxiety. We have a few sixes and nines in our team, so I was like, okay, this is gonna help me to really identify how I can then talk, create an environment. I know that my nines and my sixes need that extra structure, they need that extra to show them, so I did that, and that helped. So when I was talking to my husband earlier today, I was like, yeah, and I did that, and I showed them this, and they felt so much better, and that's because I knew
Yeah.
the Enneagram
Good,
type.
because when you
works.
think someone, it's just a behavior that they learn, it's actually a mask for something that's going on, and having
Yes.
that knowledge
Right.
and being able to be the empath and say, hey, that's not like you. Some people say it's a
Right.
quirk or whatever, but really it's a signature of stress. It's a signature of
Correct.
anxiety. It kind of
Correct.
allows you to take that extra step as a friend, as a coworker, and allow you to pinpoint, okay, something's up. Tell me
and
what's
to
up.
and to not and understand to not take personality personally.
Right.
That's the other piece, because I think
Yeah.
so many times we take what others do, how others react so personally as an
offended.
attack to us, that it becomes very difficult to be empathetic and to make that switch. So it's really understanding, like, wait, I need to disconnect myself. So there's that disconnection that happens in a healthy way, that I am not the glasses that I wear. Like, I'm
Yes.
not the
Yes.
type, the type, I had to become the type to live life and to
Right.
be the person that I am. I had to become that type, but I'm more than that. I'm more than that type. So that's where the spirituality piece then comes into it. Whatever spirituality we embrace, a lot of faith-based groups use the Enneagram just because it's like very good with the spirituality piece. So it can be used in that sense too. And knowing that, so I think it's very important to remember
That's
that
cool.
don't take personality personal.
That's such a
Yep.
good point. And I feel like when you were mentioning all this, it gives me empathy for the other numbers. You know what I mean? That you were like, when
Yes.
they were little, this is what they went through. And it
Yes.
formed them. And I was like, wow. I'm like, it
Yes.
really gives you a lot of empathy for why you are the way you are, because it's not like you're being a jerk. It's like, this
Yeah.
is the way you were formed, and this is the trauma you experienced, or the whatever you
Exactly.
experienced. And now you are the way you are. So I
Exactly.
really think that's great, so that people can be like, okay, let me give a little empathy to these other numbers, or even to myself,
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I like that. I think
Yeah.
that you mentioned that this is the beginnings of this. I like that.
Correct. And I think it makes such an impact when you see it that way. To me, I visioned it as my friend or my partner being that child.
Yes, exactly.
And when you envision that, I cried for my husband too.
Yeah.
When I read
Yes.
his type and I read the message and all, and I was
Yes.
like, oh,
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
is like this is
It's
some
heavy,
really
yeah.
heavy stuff. Yeah.
Totally.
So it really exactly, and that is the point. That is the point, to get that compassion, to see the person from another perspective,
Yeah.
and to really understand. Wow, this person is doing the best that they can.
Yep.
I'm doing the best that I can, with what I have. So let's just
Yeah.
talk to each other. Let's
Yeah.
just have compassion for
That is
each
so
other.
interesting. Going back to the spiritual part real quick, is there any connection, as you were sharing all the numbers and their strengths and stuff, is there any connection, like, I know, like, biblically there's like spiritual gifts. I don't know, do you know of anything where there's like a connection to like numbers having certain gifts, like nines having like discernment, or like being good, like twos are probably good teachers because you are, that just comes naturally. Do you know, is there anything like that? I don't know.
There is, and they have. So from the core, what I have come to understand is like from the core information that we have of the Enneagram, the teachings of where it comes from, then it has evolved, right, into people creating things to make more sense or more palatable.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you start looking into the Enneagram, it's very dense.
Right.
So there is, I have seen so that is more mainstream. Like there's information where it says, the gifts of discernment, because it attaches to the original idea behind, which are the original sins of each type.
Oh, do you know those? Do you know those original sins?
I know ours because I saw it.
What's our original sin?
Sloth.
Oh man, I feel so embarrassed.
We is slothfully lazy, and this is so true. This is true because you can catch me on a day be like,
Dang, what is a two's original sin?
Pride.
Oh, wow, interesting. Okay.
So they're all the original 7 sins plus 2 more that are added. So let me see if I can remember them. If not, I'm gonna have to.
Sorry, yeah, no worry. We weren't even gonna talk about
I
this.
I usually don't like, because then that
you don't want to overload people.
that opens a whole nother. But yeah, so 9s are sloth, 2s are pride, 3s are, ay Dios mío, vanity. 3s are vanity.
Okay.
4s are, I'm going to have to look it up. Hold on.
Do you remember any of the other numbers, Alex?
I got so hung up on 9.
Do you know Danny's?
Oh, it's I think Danny's like holy or something.
Holy?
Where he's like striving so much for perfection that it's like bordering on holy or something.
Okay.
Oh, she found it.
2s are pride. So 4 is envy. So I mentioned, I hinted at it. Se me olvidó. 4 is envy. 6 is fear.
Okay.
5 is greed. Because 5 wants all the information. It's not money. It's all the information. 6 is fear. Like I said, 7 is gluttony.
Gluttony.
Okay, that eat life, right? Gluttony. And 8s are lust.
Oh. Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
And what
That's
was one?
So crazy.
1 is wrath.
Oh, my bad. Not holy. not striving for that whole unattainable holiness.
I think that's the opposite.
I think so, maybe, because I know that there was like an opposite, and there was a lot. It was on the table that it was very interesting.
This is great. This is so multifaceted.
Yeah.
It is. It's like, whoa, this is like mind blowing.
It is, yeah, because when you start going, so they would say in psychology, when I was looking into more Claudio Naranjo, Claudio Naranjo works on those 9 sins.
Wow.
He says that the personality is actually developed starting with those 9 sins, has the core of it. So that's how, like, it will manifest itself, how it will show. So there's this belief system that then shows up into like this types of behaviors or archetypes. Yeah.
So crazy.
Very interesting. Yeah. When I looked at mine, I was like, pride.
You're like, no.
No way. No.
Me?
Not me.
I got it, but no way.
That's so funny.
But yeah, but it translates when you start reading it. It's not the pride of like prideful, like I know everything. Usually when you talk to 2s are like, I don't want to shine. I don't want to, be the center of attention. But 9s, the pride comes in them knowing that they're very self-sufficient. They know they're good at
It's almost
something.
like a stubbornness.
Or narcissistic, we could say.
Okay.
Because they know that they're good. They have learned from childhood that they know how to meet a need.
Yes.
That's what they needed to do, meet needs. They're good at meeting needs. So why do I need you? You need me.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting. Dang, this is deep.
There might be a part 2 because
We can do part 2. Let's go.
This is so deep. Well, I know we could talk to you forever, Natali, but this has been so great. Thank you for giving our viewers and us a brief 101 of Enneagram.
Sure,
and
absolutely. My pleasure. I love talking about this stuff.
Definitely. How can people get connected to you? I know you have a business.
Sure. Yes. So I have a business, a coaching business, a speaking and coaching business. So people can reach me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Inward Coaching, and then they'll be able to find my information there.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for
You're
being here and
welcome.
sharing.
Of
This is so
course.
helpful. Honestly, as we're working on ourselves, we're like,
Yes.
we need this information to be like, okay, how can I deal with this anger? Or how can I handle this sloth-like behavior?
Yeah, get me going, being the healthy 3,
Yeah.
taking that action. No, it's been very, very eye-opening super helpful. So, and then you as the interpreter, amazing.
Yes.
No, thank you.
So
Yes.
it's been, I can't wait to see how, with the reactions we get from people, it's going to be super exciting. So,
Yeah.
but thank you
Oh,
again for coming
awesome.
on. It was awesome to have you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank
Anytime.
you. Yeah, we'll definitely
thank
have
you
to
for
have a
having
part
me.
2.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the episode. I know we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to like dwell on this for a while. But thank you guys. If you can like, subscribe, review, all the good things that we appreciate. And most importantly, share this with a friend that you think would appreciate it and be encouraged by this. And we love you guys, and we'll see you for the next episode. Bye.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Soul Sisters podcast.
Our heart is to bring this encouraging content to you, and we ask that you join us by following or subscribing wherever you're listening from.
And also, share this with a friend who would enjoy it.
We love you, and we'll see you again next week for a new episode. Besitos!